Was India always poor? That's what we've been told again and again, in school books, media, and even by some intellectuals, that India was a backward land, that the British gave us railways, modernity, and even civilization. But what if I told you this is one of the biggest lies in history? India wasn't just rich, it was the richest, a land of gold, knowledge, and abundance, so rich that for over 1,000 years, empires came just to loot her. So today, let's break this myth once and for all. Let's explore the real India, before poverty, before colonization, and before the silence, India's historical economic strength. Let's rewind 2,000 years. According to British economic historian Angus Maddison, India held nearly 33% of the world's GDP around 1 CE, even more than China. By the time the Gupta Empire peaked around 400 to 500 CE, India had become the beating heart of global trade. We weren't dependent on anyone. India exported spices, textiles, steel, diamonds, knowledge, and even zero. Yes, the mathematical zero. And in return, gold flowed in. Roman historians complained that India was draining Roman gold. Ports like Lothal, Bharuch, and later Calicut and Masulipatam were buzzing with ships from Africa, Arabia, and Southeast Asia. We weren't just rich, we were the economy. Even in 1700, just before the British started their direct rule, India's GDP share was around 24% of the world. So if we were that prosperous, what happened? Loot before the British, a timeline of invasions and temple plunder. Our decline didn't start with the British, it began with centuries of brutal invasions, each wave chipping away at India's soul. Let's walk through it, honestly and clearly. Mahmud of Ghazni, 1027 AD, invaded India 17 times. Didn't come to rule, he came to loot. Most infamous attack, Somnath Temple in Gujarat, a rich, thriving temple said to hold immense gold and wealth. He destroyed idols, took the treasure, and proudly documented it as jihad. But that was just the beginning. Muhammad Ghori, 1175 to 1206 AD, defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in the Second Battle of Tara in 1192 AD. Unlike Ghazni, Ghori established control, laying the foundation for the Delhi Sultanate. His successors like Qutbuddin Aibak started the chain of temple destructions across North India. It wasn't just loot anymore. It was colonization with religious domination. The Delhi Sultanate, 1206 to 1526 AD. From the Khiljis to Tughlaqs, wave after wave plundered temples, imposed jizya tax on non-Muslims, and destroyed ancient learning centers. Alauddin Khilji sacked Devagiri, looted South Indian temples, and destroyed the Madurai Meenakshi temple. The Mughals, 1526 to 1707 AD, Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb, each played their part. While Akbar showed relative tolerance, others like Aurangzeb raised temples at Kashi, Mathura, and Somnath again. Thousands of temples were demolished, not just for religion, but to erase culture, resistance, and economic power. Tipu Sultan, late 1700s. While hailed as a freedom fighter by some, he too destroyed Hindu temples and forcibly converted people in Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. The Srirangapatna temple archives still document this. Every invasion wasn't just military. It was economic destruction. Temples were more than places of worship. They were banks, universities, and cultural hubs. And the loot taken to build palaces in Persia, Samarkand, and Kabul. India was bleeding long before the British arrived. Colonial drain of wealth. How the British finished the job. By the mid-1700s, the British East India Company had arrived. Not as saviors, but as ruthless traders backed by an army. Battle of Plassey, 1757. This was the turning point. Robert Clive defeated Siraj-ud-Dawla and began Britain's direct loot of Bengal, one of the richest provinces in Asia. Here's how they dismantled India. 1. Drain of wealth from 1765 to 1938. It's estimated that over 45 trillion in today's value was extracted from India. No trade, no fair exchange, just loot. India exported cotton, spices, and indigo. and received nothing but more taxes and poverty in return. 2. Destruction of industries. India's famed textile hubs in Dhaka, now Bangladesh, Murshidabad, and Surat were forced to shut down. British policies banned Indian weavers and flooded the market with machine-made British goods. A country that once clothed the world was now wearing imported rags. 3. Imposition of land revenue systems. The zamindari system forced farmers to pay fixed taxes regardless of crop yield. Result: famines. Over 30 million Indians died in British-induced famines between 1770 and 1943. 4. Deindustrialization. India's share in global manufacturing fell from 25% in 1750 to 2% in 1900. We went from global exporter to impoverished colony. 5. Cultural and educational dismantling. English replaced traditional learning. Sanskrit pathshalas and madrasas were defunded. British mocked Indian knowledge systems, calling them superstition, while stealing Ayurveda, metallurgy, and astronomy ideas. 6. Psychological damage. Indians were made to feel inferior. Generations grew up believing the West was superior in thought, action, and science. This wasn't just theft of wealth, it was destruction of confidence, identity, and pride. Post-colonial hangover and broken narrative. The British left in 1947, but the damage was done. We inherited a country broken in spirit and economy. What's worse, we continued to believe their version of our story. History books still say India was always poor, that we owe modernity to colonizers, that temples were regressive. But the truth? It's all there, in ruins, in records, and in reality. We just chose to ignore it. India wasn't born poor. We were looted, divided, and made poor over centuries. By invaders, by colonizers, and sadly, sometimes, by ourselves. But we don't have to stay broken. If we reclaim our real history, not out of hate but out of truth, we begin the journey to rise again. Poverty was never our destiny, and history is proof of that.